Weekly guest Brett Dolan joining us from Touchdown Radio and Razorback Sports Network. Perfect game. Brett, what's going on? How are you?
The athletic calendar begins today, Phil. So, I mean, we already have a telecast tonight for Arkansas soccer, Iowa, Arkansas Hawks. So it feels like everything starts earlier every year, but my goodness, we're not even with students fully back on campus, and we're cranking out events starting tonight.
This is regular season, right? I mean, it actually starts tonight?
It starts tonight.
No kidding.
They were playing exhibition games about a week and a half ago, and I'm like, we're barely into August. But, yeah, their regular season starts tonight, so we've got a ranked matchup between the two teams. So I guess it all begins now for us. I mean, it'll be volleyball, football, and then into basketball and whatnot, but it begins tonight.
Is it like riding a bike, remembering your soccer terminology for your play-by-play?
Oh, boy. There's nothing about riding a bicycle that corresponds to my soccer knowledge because I'd be falling off and tumbling into the ditch or onto the sidewalk. So it's survival for me, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, we're at the point here where we're ready for a football game too. I'm sure Coach Colby's group has been ready for a soccer match for probably the last month or so. So. Is that where you are as well? What is it that you glean in this month? Because you got a lot of research to do for the games that you'll be doing for Touchdown Radio next month. I mean, when you're reading around, do you feel that there are more unknowns at Arkansas than just about any other program that you're looking into?
Well, yes, but I think a larger answer to that question is I feel like there's more unknowns everywhere, and whether it's what we're kind of going through with Major League Baseball, where everything changes from one week to the next for a team that's hot and a team that's not, and a team that's on the rise and a team that's plummeting. It does feel like maybe in college football I have kind of a similar feeling, but obviously with Arkansas there are probably a few more unknowns. There seems to be optimism around some of the early practices. I know it's hard to take much from that, and it's probably important to temper, but I would agree as far as just kind of wanting to see some games soon and kind of piecing this together with our own eyes.
Hey, Brett, what do you make of the situation of John Matur, the quarterback from Oklahoma that was, accused or apparently bet on football, and then he comes out and says he doesn't? Anything happen there? Does that kid play all year? Do you think that he gets disciplined?
I think there's discipline coming, and usually it's severe with this gambling. I don't think this is going to be the only issue like this that's going to pop up from time to time, whether it's in the conference or across the country. Whether it's a baseball pitcher, Cleveland had a couple of them that were just throwing a pitch, so to speak, on a prop bet that are suspended, and this thing's going to hang out there for a while. I don't know if the kid can clear his name, but they're pretty good as far as identifying malfeasance, so to speak. So I would think in this era we're in, there aren't many things that get you into a lot of trouble, but gambling is still one of them. So I hope that this was just a joke and this is not real for his sake and for the game, but if there's any hint of it, I think he's going to get some punishment.
Hey, who's the best running back in the SEC that you think? Because we were looking at this Arkansas schedule, and Love, the kid from Notre Dame, might be the best running back that Arkansas is going to play against. Is the SEC running back position down a little bit right now?
I would probably say so. We kind of get into this thought process where we start even looking at quarterbacks and looking at some of the top talent. It's not something like it was a decade ago where we would immediately start throwing out some names of some running backs. You almost have to work to get into some of those that are pretty good. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be a few that emerge, but I would agree. I think probably just with the nature of the game and where we're at, that running is somewhat devalued, and when that happens, you don't have as many quality players that at least we have to talk about at the beginning of the season.
Can I revisit with you for a moment about this gambling situation with John Matir and just overall how you try to balance the idea? And it's something Matt brought up the moment we talked about it 2 days ago. And Brett, all the time you spent around pro ball, just like me, gambling is part of the culture. It's usually card games around a table or on the bus. Gambling about which of the cars that you see next to the bus is going to get to the stoplight first. Who can win the daily competition for the sunflower seeds near the left field line, that kind of stuff.
And there's no digital fingerprint when they do it that way. You
right.
Just kind of, yeah.
Right, but then there's the other side of it, and you've got Michael Porter Jr. yesterday talking about how it's his brother Jonte that's banned from playing ever again in the NBA for obvious reasons. And I think Michael basically said that he deserved his suspension. But, if it's such a part of the culture of being an athlete and being competitive, it just seems to be, you got to know where you got to take that competitive feeling and let it go. And even if it's if it's one person betting against another person for a sport, you got to keep it to yourself is what it comes down to. And I think sometimes we forget that all of these apps that we may use, they're basically social media apps. That's what Venmo is. It's a social media app that you can exchange funds through. You got to think through these things a heck of a lot better if gambling is going to stay a part of the athletic culture, which I think it does.
Oh, it's going to stay. But I just go back, Phil, and I can't disagree with you. I think people by nature are competitive, and we're talking about sometimes small wagers, $20, $25. If I'm not mistaken, about a year and a half ago when they went through the state of Iowa, they were looking for athletes at Iowa State. They found a handful, including Iowa State starting quarterback who had made some small bets inside the facility where they were able to identify it using his parents' account. That got blown up pretty quickly because he was inside the facility. Iowa had a future NFL player who bet one $20 bet on the women's basketball national championship and was out for the year. I have a feeling that's going to be talked about forever. I think that's a little bit too severe, but I got a feeling when they go around and they talk to these teams, they're like, this kid missed the entire year because he placed a $20 bet on his school's team, which was the biggest event on that school's calendar for the year for a national championship game. Now, they went after them. They targeted those players, and they started looking for specific names and recognizable names, but other states probably would have found a lot, too, had they gone through with that same almost unfair aspect of it. But, it felt like a few years ago, athletic departments didn't want to take revenue from alcohol. Well, that's long since passed. And then it was the gambling issue. And right now it's kind of the Wild West, but you're going to have more kids that feel like it's normalized and are going to make some mistakes. And the question is, how will our appetite be to go after them? Because if we really wanted to, there would be more. And if you really want to overlook it, it's possible, but there's some kids that have already paid a pretty big price.
Brett, the best true freshman running back I've ever seen is Adrian Peterson. Put these three running backs in order from greatest, 1, 2, 3. Barry Sanders, Herschel Walker, Adrian Peterson.
Wow.
And there's no wrong answer, obviously.
You're right.
How much time you got?
There is no wrong. I'm with you. Herschel, for his era, his numbers probably didn't correspond, I'm guessing, to Adrian Peterson, who was so dominant. The one thing about Barry, and I have fun with my Hall of Fame partner, when we did a game at Oklahoma State a few years ago, Matt, I read off his senior season numbers. And you might be able to dial them up, and you almost think, are we talking career numbers? No.
It's a video
are we
game.
Talking 2 seasons? It's one season. It was like 30-some touchdowns in 1 year, which was incredible. But, I can't argue with you. You're right. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think Adrian would be probably a good one. Herschel, for his era, was almost the pre-Bo Jackson, but and then Barry, just with his size and his career numbers, were pretty crazy too.
Let me give you his numbers from that 88 season. Okay?
Yeah. Phil, but real quick, the last 7 games of the season, did you see that? He averaged 10 yards a carry, 1,400 yards. That's just the last 7 games of the season.
The last 7 games of that season, which were against Nebraska, Mizzou, K-State, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and then Wyoming, which was a good team. Sanders that year, 1988, 2,628 yards rushing and 37 touchdowns.
37 touchdowns.
30 in 11 games.
He's scoring 3+ a game. Yes. I mean, we're so in tune now to guys getting to 1,000 yards, and it's a big deal, or how it's changed from a running to a passing sport over the last 15 years. You look back on those numbers, and you're like, that's not even possible.
I can't even imagine. It's 37. That's averaging over 3 touchdowns a game. How do you do that? How do you do that? Never mind that. How did Oklahoma State that year even lose 2 games? They lost 2 games to Oklahoma and Nebraska, even with Barry Sanders setting an all-time record. I don't know how you pull that off. But then again,
pretty amazing, right? When you go back and you look at some of these seasons guys had, and I know there's probably been a few years where there's been a Heisman winner where there's almost been, I won't say there wasn't just a clear-cut candidate, but it was a little bit harder to kind of navigate through a couple of different players. And then you have years like that where you're like, a running back will never come close to something like that again with the touchdowns and the yards and what he was able to do. And we're not talking about, again, a 14-15 game schedule, which might be a little more commonplace now, going back to the 11 and 12 game schedules from yesteryear.
Hey, did you get were you at a Michigan game in their championship year? I only bring it up because the sign stealing deal is the NCAA is going to be making their announcements on Friday. Were you at any of those games?
I think I had one with Iowa, and we joked that it didn't matter because they knew what was coming anyhow.
Yeah. So we know what they're going to release. It's not a matter of that there's who knows what kind of punishments there's going to be. But in the grand scheme of things, and I see the other day, was it Bellinger? I think Cody Bellinger talking still about Jose Altuve and the Astros in 2017 from 8 years ago, and nobody's ever going to give up on that. That's going to have a blank asterisk next to that championship until the end of time. Are we going to be viewing Michigan from 2 years ago the same way?
I think we have this tendency to move on quickly, more so in football than we do baseball. And you're right. I mean, Altuve, Correa, they still get booed. I almost think it fuels them rather than scares them away anymore with the performance they put up. I think just like in politics, we move on from disasters and chaos, and we're on to the next thing. And I got a feeling with Michigan, we're going to sort of kind of forget that, whether or not we should. But I'm curious on the punishment because, I just watched that Miami football documentary over the weekend, and they went, 2.5 years, 3 years waiting for their punishment, and that was almost worse. But I'll be curious to see what, if anything, they do to the institution rather than just some of the individuals.